We're continuing our look at supply chains. In our previous videos, we looked at supply chain as being part of the value chain, and we looked at choosing a supplier. Now let's look at how we can analyze how well the supply chain is performing. So the first thing we would do in our supply chain analysis is look at why is each part of the supply chain done where it is. So just to give you an example of some of these decisions, let's look at the supply chain as it relates to the COVID vaccine. So when we look at the COVID vaccine, particularly the Pfizer one, there are locations in terms of where Pfizer or BioNTech does its manufacturing. In the case of the COVID vaccine, it has a cold supply chain. It has to be kept cold in order to maintain its effectiveness. Moderna is similar in terms of also needing to be maintained in terms of cold, but not quite as cold. So let's look at the cold chain management of the Pfizer vaccine. So if we can manufacture the Pfizer vaccine in Germany, and they can produce about 60 million per month. It then needs to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius. And so Belgium happens to have cold storage facilities that will keep it cold enough. So we have, in terms of the locations of our supply chain, we have where is the factory located for Pfizer, and then where is there the infrastructure to store it and keep it cold, and that's in Belgium. And then we're going to need to combine that vaccine with vials, syringes, needles, gauze, alcohol swabs, all in order to actually turn it into something that can be put into someone's arm. So we have procurement as well. Then we're going to need to get that to people in Canada. So that means that we're going to have to move that product from Europe to Canada. Well, we're going to need to transport it. And when it comes to that transportation, we have companies like UPS and FedEx that specialize in logistics. Now, the challenge, of course, with cold chains is that we have to keep the product cold while it's being moved. So when it comes to the Pfizer vaccine, it cannot be in transit for longer than 10 days. And we're going to store it in boxes filled with dry ice and with sensors to make sure that it maintains its cold temperature. And then as we move it across the world and bring it into Canada, we're going to need to have our own freezers that are going to be able to store the amount that we've ordered at the temperatures that we need. So in Canada, we ordered from Panasonic a number of freezers to help us store those vaccines. Then we need to get those vaccines from where they came in to the Canadian border out to the provinces. And so in Canada, when it comes to that vaccine management, it is the military that helps with distributing it out to the provinces. So the Canadian military gets those vaccines that are in cold storage and sends it out to Alberta. Then it is in the hands of Alberta Health Services. And Alberta Health Services is going to have to then manage getting it transported and delivered to pharmacies, hospitals, and physicians. We also need to coordinate with the Alberta Health Services inventory management system. So we need to figure out who's had a vaccine, who needs their second, who needs their third. And in early stages of COVID vaccination, there was an incentive to track what type you had. So if you had Pfizer the first time, they want you to take Pfizer the second time. And so then there's a lot of, in terms of inventory management and information systems, to make sure that we have enough of the right brand of vaccine in the right place so the right people can get that particular one. So Alberta Health Services had to manage then the records, the health records of individuals across Alberta as well. Then we have to consider, as we store and transport, when we have the vaccine, if it's not kept at that minus 70 degrees Celsius, once it thaws, it's good for 5 days. So what we saw is that it would come in and be stored in areas like Edmonton, and then it would have to be transported to smaller towns across Alberta. Well, that transportation, typically by car, starts the thawing process. Now, those products then can only last 5 days. Now, once it reaches your pharmacy, in order for you to get a vaccine, a single vial needs to be diluted. And so a vial is diluted down, makes 5 shots. Once you dilute that vial and make the shots, it's good for 6 hours. And so what we saw early in the vaccination process is that the pharmacies were vaccinating anybody they could find, because otherwise you're throwing away half a vial once it's been diluted. And once those vials have been thawed after 5 days, they also have to be thrown out. So there was a sense of urgency in terms of anything that was taken out of cold storage, we needed to use all of it and as quickly as possible. Now, Moderna has a little bit longer shelf life. Once it's thawed, it lasts about 30 days. Once it's diluted, it lasts about 12 hours. And so what we did see in Alberta is that if you lived in more of a rural area, then you had Moderna because it took longer to get it to you, and there were less people who were being served by a particular pharmacy or location. So it made it harder to find the 5 people for each vial, right? So Moderna spread out a little bit further. And then what happened is the Pfizer went to the bigger towns where there was a lot more people concentrated in one area, or where there was better storage and cold storage. So when we look at the supply chain, we need to look at, can the supply chain itself be shortened? So can we remove some of these steps or some of these parties involved? And why is each part of the supply chain happening where it is? When we look at the cold supply chain for the vaccines, we can look at how it spans multiple countries based on what kind of infrastructure is available. So why is each part of the supply chain done where it is? Can the supply chain be shortened? The next thing we want to look at is alignment of the supply chain and the strategies that our organization has. So we need to understand if we have more of a functional product or an innovative product. A functional product, defined by Harvard Business Review as a product that has very predictable demand. So we can forecast demand, we know how much is typically bought. Its product life cycle is longer. Its profit margins tend to be smaller. Okay. And that type of product with the more predictable demand, we're going to then focus on the efficiency of the supply chain. So we're going to look at reducing costs and reducing waste. If we have a more innovative product, so maybe it's something new, we have unpredictable demand, it hasn't been out very long, it's very early in its life cycle, it probably has a higher profit margin. Now, because we don't quite know how much demand there's going to be, the focus in terms of strategy needs to be on responsiveness, on timeliness. Can our supply chain be very flexible? Because we might have way more demand than we expect, and we need the supply chain to be able to respond quickly to get us that additional inventory if we need it. So you'll notice those innovative products need to have much shorter lead times than the functional products where we have much more predictable demand. So the strategies we use in order to improve our supply chain are really going to be dependent on what type of products we have in terms of their life cycle, in terms of profit margins, in terms of the ability to predict demand for them. So when we look at supply chain improvements, it can be more about efficiency. And so looking at cost, it can be more in terms of responsiveness and timeliness. Your inventory strategy, your choices on suppliers are going to change depending on which one you're focusing on. So if we are going to focus on efficiency and lower cost, then we are going to really focus on that lean, minimizing inventory throughout the supply chain. If our focus is more on timeliness or responsiveness, then we might want a bit more excess inventory, extra stock on hand just in case as a buffer. If we are going to be focused on more efficiency, then we're going to choose suppliers primarily for cost and quality. If we are focused more on timeliness and responsiveness, then it's really going to be on choosing suppliers who can be more flexible and provide a quick turnaround. So we looked at why each part of the supply chain is done where it is. Can the supply chain be shortened? We look at alignment of the supply chain and our strategies. And then we need to evaluate our retailers. And so we can see here from the Harvard Business Review, you can see here a little questionnaire that they've designed to help you in terms of assessing your retailers. So if you have a company who is going to sell on your behalf, you need to make sure that they are effective as a retailer. And so Harvard Business Review recommends answering this questionnaire, have a couple people within your organization do the assessment, and then collect the average score and compare it between retailers. So let's look at what we consider when we are evaluating our retailer. We want to look at the retailer's sales performance for us. So how well have they been doing at generating revenue for us? So let's say that we make jewelry that companies like the Bay sell. When it comes to our particular jewelry, is the Bay promoting our jewelry? Is it moving that inventory? So are we actually seeing sales at the Bay of our jewelry? What kind of financial performance is there? And so if we look at in terms of how much money that we are making, is it providing us with adequate profits? Are they generating growth for us? So are we seeing increase in sales? Are we seeing opportunities for a new customer base, expansion in our market share because of our partnership with the retailer? Is our retailer competent? Do they have the knowledge, the skills, the expertise in order to be a partner and to help promote and to help sell our product? Do they have knowledge about our product? When people come in and ask for our product, do they know things about us? So you can think about, let's say that you are a company that sells ladders and you're selling your ladders in Home Depot. People come in and they're looking for your ladder, and the Home Depot employees say, I don't know what aisle that's in. Or you say, I need a ladder that holds a certain amount of weight or can do this certain function. I need my ladder for this activity. And if the people who work there are not able to provide the information about your ladder and what kind of weight it can hold and what kind of ground it works best on, then that's not going to help you sell. And so is your retailer competent? Do they actually help you in terms of generating growth, in terms of your financials, in terms of your sales? And then are they complying with the terms of your contract? So maybe you have an agreement. So let's say you're Doritos and you have a contract with the grocery store and you're paying them extra to have your Doritos Cooler Ranch flavor at eye level to the customers. So are they abiding by that contract? Is it actually at eye level? Maybe you're paying extra to be featured at the end of a row to have a special visual location. Are they abiding by that contract? Are they doing those stipulations? And then are they adapting to marketplace changes? So if we're seeing a change in terms of who the customers are, in terms of the demographics, in terms of marketing methods, are they adapting to that? So if we are selling our jewelry at the Bay, is the Bay continuing to attract young people? Maybe that's more of our target, is jewelry for the young, the new people moving into industry. So people in their 20s and 30s getting established, they start to have money, but they need to dress nice for work and business attire. Is the Bay continuing to appeal to them by adapting to changes in the market in terms of advertising to them? So maybe that group doesn't really watch TV. Are they advertising on the internet and social media? Are they adapting to that change? Is the clientele base coming into the Bay still that group, or is it because of the methods the Bay is using? Maybe it's still using older advertising methods, television, newspaper, and maybe because the rest of its inventory, what it sells, hasn't adapted to the demographics either. It's starting to sway towards more of an older clientele. So then it really no longer matches who our target market is. So we have to consider these things as we look at our partnership with a retailer. And then the last one here is our customer satisfied. And again, back to if you're Home Depot, if Home Depot is selling your ladders, do customers feel like they're getting quality service when they go to Home Depot to buy your ladder? Do they feel supported? Can they return it? Are they getting the assistance that they need? So assess your retailer, compare them to other companies that you maybe had sell your product before as you determine who should be part of your supply chain. So why is each part of the supply chain done where it is? Can the supply chain be shortened? We look at the alignment of the supply chain and our strategy, and we evaluate our retailer. The last one here is to improve the quality and leanness of the entire supply chain. So here we're starting to look at, are we able to be more efficient? Can we have that quality management, that lean manufacturing throughout the entire supply chain?